Are you aware of any long-distance flight tests that have been done on any of the discs?
As of the time that I was there, I was told that they really didn't take them any great distance at all, other than right outside.
Have you heard the rumor of the pilots that were killed by flying ADX?
No.
If we had a working agreement with the aliens at one time, why didn't they give us a user's manual for these ships? Why have we had to work so hard back engineering them?
I haven't the slightest idea. You know,
Have they assisted us at all with any of the technology and running it?
I really don't know. You know, it almost seems like there had to have been some assistance or some information found, but who knows?
Your information didn't indicate that.
No.
Yeah, with such tight security around there, supposedly only 500 pounds of this material, how is it somebody can get some of it out of there?
Because some of the the material is that they have there is essentially raw. The material is, it has to be machined into discs. These discs have to be stacked up and then cut into a cone shape and then sliced along the long axis of it. That work is done at Los Alamos. I'm not exactly sure Los Alamos knows what they're doing. Apparently they think that they're developing the little coins they're working on is some new type of armor. And having worked at Los Alamos and know people around that area, that's how I obtained some of it.
Can you say anything about Project Looking Glass and the relationship between gravity and time?
Well, gravity and time are almost essentially the same thing. And Looking Glass dealt with using gravity essentially to distort time, and as I've said before, I really know very little about that, but you know, they're only talking about milliseconds or even less microseconds of time distortion. They're not like looking back in time to see who killed Kennedy or something.
The craft that are you talking about, the scout craft, is that the one that's like the Adamski picture with the 3 domes underneath? And if it's not,
I'm not exactly sure what the Adamski
okay,
picture.
it's the saucer shape. It has
This
three
is the
balls
one
underneath.
that looks like one of the Meyer craft.
Mm-hmm.
Did you see any others than that one, or is there 9 up there?
Yeah, I saw 9 total, but that's the only one I got close enough to.
Did you see the one with the 3 domes underneath, that 3 balls underneath, that has the central housing underneath?
No.
And then the second question was, did anybody give you any indication as to who was driving, or any information on that?
I assume that it was humans that were piloting the craft, though it could have been remote control, but at the one test flight that I saw on the ground, they were in radio communication with someone, and I assumed it was someone in the craft. I imagine it's possible that it could have been a remote observer somewhere, but I just assumed that the seats were retrofitted, or they were sitting on the floor for that matter.
Are you familiar with, I have a couple aspects of the question. Are you familiar with Howard Menger's Electrocraft and Otis Carr's saucer design? And how are their devices, how do they generate their gravity fields compared with what you've described? And lastly, can you speculate how why the commercialization of some of these crafts hasn't been possible with so many different patents applied for these kinds of design crafts?
Because they don't work.
Are there any G forces encountered
No.
by the pilots inside the craft?
I don't know.
None at all.
From your interviews, you seem to feel that the Area 51 or the S4 test site was kind of slipshod in how it does its research. It really doesn't have the facilities there to actually do the research correctly. And also, I'm wondering, could you comment about that? And also, I'm wondering what you could tell us about the other types of ships you saw there that you felt were alien in origin.
Well, as far as the research at S4, that was kind of slipshod. Just because, mainly it was being done from a military point of view. If anything, it was a weapons development program, and they were more concerned about duplicating the technology, not really duplicating the technology, duplicating the hardware, as opposed to back engineering the technology to find out how these theories actually work and what's going on with them. And so they really weren't taking the scientific approach, and that was causing some dissension. I don't remember the second part of the question.
Just what other types of ships did you see that might have been alien in origin?
I only saw them, and they varied in shape, but I was told they had the same identical power and propulsion system, and that's the extent of my knowledge on it.
What about shape?
They varied completely in shape.
Yeah, on the, you had the military out there supposedly working with the aliens. Did you ever get an inference from them that it was a positive or a negative situation? In other words, when they brought up, when they were talking about the aliens or whatever, was it a positive or a negative type slant on the...
Well, they really didn't talk about the aliens. The only time I ever heard anybody mention anything about an alien, someone, and I'm just assuming that, someone called it, or called the thing, a gourd. And that was it. I heard it in the middle of a conversation, and they stopped talking when I got up to them, so that was the thing.
Questions from the interior of the sports model. I know you have a reference to the power source in the center of the craft, and there were small seats that were low to the ground. How about consoles or displays or any kind of instrumentation?
Nothing along those lines, but what I call the console, there are 3 seats. If you look at the bottom level, there's the 3 amplifiers in a triad formation. Directly above each one is something I call a console, and I think that's a secondary part to the amplifier. And an analogy to that would be the actual amplifier, and the thing hanging underneath would kind of be a speaker if you're talking on audio terms. So.
Is there any kind of control or light indicator?
No.
No on switch?
Not that I could find.
Did it seem like there was any place or even a need for a life support of any kind on these?
Not that it was obvious to me.
Two questions. How do they navigate and how do we converse with them?
I haven't the slightest idea how they navigate. You know, like I said, I think if that, whatever controls the configuration of the amplifier is the focusing, which is basically their navigation, is most probably on the upper level of the craft that I didn't get to look at. And as far as the conversation between them, your guess is as good as mine.
Was the local means of propulsion the same as this across great space differences? What was the local means?
The local means of propulsion is essentially them balancing on an out-of-phase gravity wave. And it's not as stable as you would think. When the craft took off, it wobbled to some degree. It's, I mean, a modern-day Hawker Harrier or something along those lines, a vertical takeoff craft, is much more stable than them in the Omicron configuration, which is that mode of travel. The Delta configuration is where they use the 3 amplifiers, and those are the only 2 methods I know about for moving the craft.
Can one pilot, as far as you know, pilot this craft, or does it take 3, or do you know anything about that?
I don't know. Oh, and back in the red?
Yeah.
You're both in the red.
Number 15, was that stable? In other words, does it give off the radiation, or can you hold it?
No, it's stable.
Stable, so you hold it right in your hand?
Yeah, theoretically, elements should reach a stability around anywhere from 113 to 116, somewhere in there, and apparently that's true. And again, they should reach a stability somewhere up around 220 some odd. But whether those elements will ever be synthesized or found naturally. Yeah, it's unusually heavy. Yeah.